Third-party content has been copied and communicated pursuant to Part 5A or 5B of the Copyright Act, unless indicated otherwise.
My name is Charmaine Ferguson. I work here in Denmark, at a university in Denmark, and I teach BIM and also Revit over there. I originally studied here at TAFE and then did an exchange program with the university in Denmark and ended up finishing my studies here and my Danish bachelor, and now I stay in Denmark, living there and working. So normally I speak to a lot of international students and have to make sure that I speak really slowly, so in this case I think it's not so bad. Firstly, I just wanted to show you a few of the projects that I've worked on myself in the BIM process. Who knows anything about BIM? You know what it is? More or less, so that's good. I'm pretty going to speak about the basics of BIM and the benefits of the process, and a little bit about Revit, the program Revit. So when I was at the school in Denmark, I did a 6-month practical placement at Schmidt Hammer Lassen, which is one of the top 5 architectural firms in Denmark. And this was my first experience with BIM. It wasn't that long ago, so it's still a relatively new process, and a lot of the companies, especially the companies that I'm working with as well, in the implementation process of BIM are finding it new and kind of a big change. But one of the projects I worked on was the Kolding Hospital, which was one of the biggest projects. I was thrown in the deep end in this project. They sat me at a computer and said, "Can you draw this?" It was a chapel for the hospital in Revit, and I had absolutely no idea. I only had a 6-week class at TAFE in Revit, and that was my only experience. So a lot of the time I've just taught myself, and at the end of this lecture I'll tell you about some of the materials that you can find online from Autodesk in relation to BIM and the software and tools that you can download for free as well. So Kolding Hospital was my first encounter with BIM. It was a great project. It's still running at the moment. It's actually too expensive to build, so they're re-looking at taking a few things out. The other one was the International Criminal Courts. That was run by the Danish office, or the Danish company in a London office, but it was based in the Netherlands. So this was a very, very international project. A very, I guess it was a high security project, but it was also done using Revit and the BIM process. There's a lot of learning that came out of this project, especially for the company, due to the size of the project and the use of technology. It didn't really go hand in hand. There were days that we spent just waiting for the models to synchronize, but that's one of the learning curves of BIM, which you'll come across in projects. So basically, building information modeling, this is from Wikipedia. I think it's a very good description of building information modeling. It's a process involving the generation and management of digital representations of physical and functional characteristics of a facility. They're big, crazy words, but when you think about them and the explanation of BIM, this is exactly what it is. The resulting building information models become shared knowledge resources to support decision-making about a facility from the earliest conceptual stages through design and construction, through its operational life and eventual demolition. Now, the fact that you start a BIM process from the very beginning is still quite new for a lot of companies out there. From the conceptual stages, creating conceptual masses in Revit, or you can even use SketchUp as well as importing into Revit. But starting the process from the very beginning gives the entire model a huge benefit as you take it through the stages. So a little bit of history, more or less. You can say the jump between the drawing board, taking the drawing board and going to the AutoCAD wasn't such a huge step for companies. It was more or less taking drawing to the computer. It was the same concept, using lines, basic 2D. I know you can do 3D AutoCAD, but just taking the 2D drawing from the paper to the computer. That was the first step. And it was in 1987 when the first conceptual idea of virtual building, which they called it, of BIM, came about through a company called Graphisoft. Do any of you use ArchiCAD? Yeah? They were the first step in the BIM process. So the jump from AutoCAD to programs like ArchiCAD and Revit is a little bit more difficult, especially for the older generation, more or less, to take on, because it is a whole new way of thinking. You're not just thinking in 2D drawings and it's just the standard, the engineers over there, the architects here. You have to collaborate, you have to communicate and work with each other. So when we speak about BIM or Revit or things like that, a lot of people just think, oh yeah, 3D, that's beautiful, we can make these fantastic renders. Actually, in my final project, one of my classmates decided to draw his model in Revit to do the 3D, and then he went to AutoCAD and drew his floor plans. So he had one computer screen with his Revit 3D model, and then his AutoCAD 2D floor plans. To me, that was just bizarre. So if you can take up using Revit at the moment, or programs involving this whole concept of BIM, your step into the industry and things like that will make it a lot easier. So obviously you've got your 2D plans that come from the 3D model. You've got your 3D. You can also add 4D. This is the ability to add time to elements. So you can take, for example, this window, and you can add a parameter, which is giving it some sort of an identity that adds time. You can add the time it's going to be delivered on site, the time it's going to be, you have to order it from the manufacturer, the time that's going to be put into its place. So you can add those parameters into this one element. You can also add cost. So you can find the cost from the manufacturer or the price book that you're using, and you can add the cost to this element. And you can then extract this information as you go. And the last one was 6D. So 6D is the facilities management phase. So the ability to put information about this window, for example, who made the window, when was it made, what's the U value or the R value, how is it double glazed. All this information that you put into this window can be extracted by any party involved in the project. So if you put the information that you need, or you know the information that you need for your project into the elements, it doesn't just have to be a window, it can be walls, whatever, in your project, you put that in the beginning, then the benefits, again, will snowball. In my final project, I went ahead and did this with fire and sound analysis. I put all these, the actual and the standard values into every wall that was in my project. And towards the end of my project, I was actually finished 2 weeks early before my exam, because I was able to just create a floor plan, turn on the parameters that I needed, and that was it. I worked very, very hard at the beginning of the project to put this information into the model, but as time progressed and it came down to the crunch, I was just able to extract that information. So if you don't put this information in, or you decide to leave it out or wait till later, you'll find that it doesn't pay off the BIM process as well as it can. So just an explanation of the global view. BIM is a common platform. So you're not just working as your architect on your architectural model. Your engineer has access to this model. Your services engineer, the estimator, everybody involved in this project can have access to this model. So there's no, oh, I'm just going to change this, and then I have to send it off to the engineer, to the structural guy, to the surveyor. It's all there, it's all digital, and it's all in one modeled platform. When you talk about BIM, there are crazy amounts of software out there. There's about approximately, they say, 21 users per project that can be involved in a project at one time. So all these users use different software as well. A lot of the software that I normally focus on is the Autodesk software. I feel that they have kind of taken a really giant step into creating programs and making things, I guess you could say, simple for the BIM process, for being a lecturer for students and things like that. There are some fantastic resources for you guys on their website, which I can show you a bit later as well. But Autodesk has the concept of closed BIM. There's closed BIM and there's open BIM. If you have closed BIM, you're working with one software package, more or less. So Autodesk, they provide Revit architecture, Revit structures, Revit MEP, Navisworks, quantities takeoff, all these programs based for different disciplines of the project. So that's like a closed platform. They don't allow, you can't collaborate with different softwares. So this is more the technological side of things. When you look at OpenBIM, it's more, again, the graphic soft, the ArchiCAD idea of BIM. There's no right way, more or less. OpenBIM, you can use things like Solibri Model Checker to put different models into the one program. They don't have to be from Autodesk, or they don't have to be from Graphisoft. They can be, your structural engineer can use a different structural program than what Autodesk has provided. So OpenBIM and closed BIM, that's the main difference between the two BIMs. If anyone has questions, you can feel free to ask as we go. Yeah, the methods the comparison between the traditional method and the building information modeling method, the biggest difference, I believe, between the two is the communication factor. So the ability to communicate with other people working within the project. So if you have your architect wants to, for example, change that window at the back of the room. He's decided, yep, I want to move that. So he goes and asks the product manufacturer, can I do that? Is that possible?
Sorry, I was going to wait to the end, but as soon as you said to
yeah?
Which is just because it's current. Just
yeah?
when you're talking about the software compatibility,
mm-hmm.
am I right in thinking if everybody's working on BIM,
yeah?
around the globe, whatever they're doing, everyone has to have the same software?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So
no, you don't have to.
We could use one.
Yeah.
So okay, so there's no international...
No, you can agree upon the project. Another project that I'm involved in at the moment, not at the university, is in Horsens. It's a new hospital. It's 250,000 metres squared. It's a university hospital. It's massive. And what they've done, they've actually hired an office in the city for the architects and the engineers and everyone involved in the project to work in the one office. And they've all decided to use Autodesk. They've made an agreement. So this goes right back to the beginning, like setting up, not necessarily contracts, but drawing manual, more or less. You decide what software you're going to use. If you decide to use, for example, Autodesk products, to me, personally, I think that's great because you're just one product. You don't have to worry about something not being compatible, although they guarantee, for example, Solibri Model Checker, where you can put in DWF files into the one program and then check the model for clashes and things like that. It's possible. It's no problem.
What about privacy issues with DWF files?
That's still, I work with some engineering companies as well. It's not my specialty, the whole law and area of who owns what. It's still very open, and that's the trouble that a lot of the companies have, is taking that step to BIM because you're so vulnerable. You can't take a drawing and say, "I'll pass that on to the engineer, let him deal with it." It's there. You can't cheat. You can't, "I'll wait to go to site," because you're virtually building the building in the virtual space. One of the main things I'm educated as a building constructor, constructing architect. Trying to translate, constructing architect. So it's like an architect who has a little bit of engineering, services, costing. That's my education. And I think a lot of the companies are seeing now, or I think that a lot of companies should see, that the people who are building these building information models are taking more responsibility. For example, they're saying the future holds on site, you have a building on site, instead of the plumber having his plans and thinking, oh, okay, the water pipe's going to go this way, I'll just do it like this. They're going to have iPads on site, and they're going to have access to this 3D model. So they'll have views of the floor plan, the 3D, how the pipe should go. So you, as someone who's drawing these information models, are drawing them the way that they're actually going to be built. There's no, I didn't understand that. You're so vulnerable in this that I think that's a scary thing for a lot of the companies. As I was saying, yeah, the architect, for example, wants to move this window in regards to communication. He's like, yep, I want to move it. He talks to the product manufacturer, and then the product manufacturer goes to the engineer. Is that possible? Can we do that? Then the engineer needs to go to the contractor. Do you think we should do that? And then the contractor goes to the trades, and then the trades go back to the architect and goes, hey, why did you want to make that a door? It's more like the Chinese whisper things. In projects, one guy goes to the other guy, he goes to another guy, and the communication is the paths are crossed. So as you know, like the snowball effect. For someone to change that window at the beginning of a project, move it in CAD or Revit or whatever you're using, it costs nothing, it takes 2 minutes. When you get to site and there's a precast concrete piece that's being created for that window, and you're like, I didn't want it there, I wanted it over there, it costs a lot more. So having a building information model allows everyone to communicate on one platform. Everyone has access, as I said. Everyone can see what the engineer is doing. You can upload his model and say, okay, well, there's a duct going right through the middle of the room. We can't have that. So it's resolved there and then. And the costs of the changes. This is also from Building Smart, and the use of the model throughout the stages. The building information model is not just for the architects or the engineers to design the building. It's also used by factories to create, for example, prefabricated concrete elements and things like that as you go along. So BIM, being the building information model, will be where you guys are involved at the beginning of the project in the design. The building assembly model, which is the same model, it's just taken to the next stage of the project. So that's more or less the BAM model. So, and then the building operation optimization model, facilities management. There is not one project that I've heard of that has taken building information modeling from the beginning to the end yet. That's how new this process is. There's been talk of it, one in Sweden coming up towards the finish, but the BOOM model is still yet to be experimented with or done in real life. So some of the benefits of BIM. This is actually a perfect picture. I would say the guys with the square boxes are using AutoCAD and SketchUp, and then the ball is Revit. So don't work hard, just work intelligent. So it's a different way of working. In my practical placement, I was working on this Revit model for this chapel. And I got to the last 2 weeks, and the competition department wanted me to do something in AutoCAD. And after working in Revit, where I sat and I thought, and I drew a wall, and I thought about, okay, I got to connect it to this wall, yep, no problem. I did that. And then I went to AutoCAD, and I was like, line, 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 move, copy, paste, move, array, done, done, done. And after that first day, my wrist was literally sore from all the work that I had put into that AutoCAD drawing. So collaboration being one of the main benefits. Sorry, as I spoke before. So all teams working on one platform. So you don't have documentation, all over the place. You get updates and changes instantly, so you can synchronize. You can see someone moves a wall, and then you can see that on your model on your screen almost instantly. And you eliminate of the unknown. This is something that is good and is bad. You can say you can't really cheat in this environment. You can if you really know the program and you really want to, but you can't really just I'll hide it under here, or I'll turn those line weights off, or whatever. You can't do that in Revit or using this BIM process, because you'll get caught out and it won't work. Someone will pick it up. There's everyone looking at the one platform, so someone will pick it up. Better understanding, as I was saying before, with the on-site being a tablet on-site, people have better understanding of the project. You don't get the engineers drawing and be like, oh, that goes there, I'm not sure where that really goes. You have the ability to choose different views within the model, so you have a much better understanding of what is going on within the model. So change management, one of the main reasons why I chose to teach the workshop Revit instead of SketchUp is that you can change one thing, for example a window, and it changes in the entire project. You can move a window in a floor plan that changes in elevation, in section, in 3D. It's instant and it's easy. So there's no more drawing, getting your floor plan and rotating around and drawing your facades and things like that. So it's definitely time saving, and really good when making design decisions to see what, for example, the look of a massive window at the front of the building would be like, or vice versa. So change management is a very good benefit. Analysis, very quick and easy to run. Have you heard about the cloud? A little bit? Yeah?
Deakin is now on the cloud.
On the cloud. The cloud is just this fantasy. Autodesk have adopted the cloud as well. They've actually, for students, it's free to run analysis in the cloud. You can render in the cloud. It doesn't take your machine power. You can let it go in the cloud while you continue to work. So running analysis for energy, CFD analysis, that's a new one that I'm looking into at the moment. These can be run instantly. You can compare your results. It's so fast, and as you were saying before with the conceptual mass, it's really, really fast. Create a mass, put it into Revit, mass the floors, and then send it to the cloud. You put obviously in your location and other construction, what the construction is. You can find the weather, you can find the energy costs, and it runs an analysis for you. So the ability to do that, especially for architects, to make design decisions is priceless, more or less. Design options, you can make changes to the base model, so you can have one model, you can make changes, and they're not just changes and thrown out. You can actually store those in the model and go back to them at different phases of the project to say, okay, maybe it would have worked or it wouldn't have worked. It's a tricky tool in Revit to handle and to master, which is a bit unfortunate because I think it's a really beneficial tool. But to be able to manipulate your model and save and have those changes stored in the model, I think is a great benefit. Data management, I think it's something that is it is the eye of BIM. It's the information that you put into the model. So it is one of the most important things, even though it goes a little bit unforeseen or unrecognized. So to put into this information into the model, it takes a lot of work and a lot of pressure out of later going through counting all your windows, costing them all up, putting your R values or U values into the model. To have that information stored in your model and accessible for everyone is another good benefit. And again, facilities management, another factor that's left, I think, towards the end that is really being built up into the BIM process and has to be something that's recognised from the beginning. just a heads up, the future is BIM. It's going to come, and there's no stopping it. I think technologies and digital design tools like Revit are a big part of BIM. It's almost, I would say, 20% process, 80% technology. So if you can start getting involved in it now, trial it, I think you have a huge chance to get out there into the workforce and have that extra edge on others, especially as architects, to have that knowledge of BIM and the tools that go with it.